Good evening. I would like to call tonight's meeting of the Tacoma Park City Council to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Searcy,
Here.
Councilmember Fulcher,
Present.
Councilmember DeBala,
She's online.
Yes, I saw Councilmember DeBala
Yes.
virtually.
Councilmember Gibson,
Here.
Councilmember Siemens,
Present.
Councilmember Honzak,
Present.
Councilmember Small.
Okay, Councilmember Small, I believe, is also joining us virtually.
Yeah,
Okay, I will send him a message. And just thank you, Councilmember DeBala, so you can see us. Okay, perfect. We can hear. Can you do a quick sound check for us?
Present.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And we're just going to check to make sure that Councilmember Small isn't having technical issues. Before doing so, just want to welcome everyone to tonight's meeting. Tonight, we have a public hearing and budget work session will continue. There are no changes to the agenda. Tonight, we will have a proclamation of May as Bike Month, followed by a public hearing on the FY 2025 budget. And then we will proceed with our only item for tonight, which is a doozy, is our budget reconciliation. In terms of upcoming agendas, on Monday, April the 29th, we'll have a special meeting starting at 7:30. It will be our budget work session. That will be our final budget reconciliation session. On Wednesday, May the 1st, the council will not meet in order to enable staff to finalize the budget in preparation for the first reading on May the 8th. On May the 8th, the council will have a series of voting sessions. The first is the first reading ordinance adopting the FY 2025 tax rate. The second is the first reading ordinance adopting the FY 2025 stormwater management budget. The next is the first reading ordinance adopting the FY 2025 budget. We will also have tentatively a resolution supporting the Maple Community Association Juneteenth celebration. On Wednesday, May the 15th, we will have also a series of voting sessions. Again, finalizing this budget. Second reading ordinance adopting the FY 2025 tax rates. Second reading ordinance adopting the FY 2025 stormwater management budget. And the second reading ordinance adopting the FY 2025 budget. We will also have a work session wrapping up the 2024 legislative session and discussion of legislative priorities to submit to the Maryland Municipal League. On Wednesday, May the 22nd, the council will meet again at 7:30. We will discuss council priorities. We have a council's priorities meeting with the State Highway Administration officials. We will also have a voting session, a resolution authorizing the submittal of the 2025 legislative action request to the Maryland Municipal League, and tentatively a quarterly financial report for the third quarter. With that, I am going to move into the proclamation for this evening. So tonight's proclamation is recognizing Bike Month. Ride a bike, bike and roll to school day, bike to work week, and bike to work day in 2024. Whereas throughout the month of May, throughout the month of May, Tacoma Park will celebrate biking and the freedom, the joy, and the well-being that imbues within us, as well as the power that more people riding bikes has in making life better for everyone. And whereas in 2024, May 5th is National Ride a Bike Day, May 8th is Bike to School Day, May 13th through the 19th is Bike to Work Week, and May 17th is Bike to Work Day. And whereas throughout the month of May, the residents of Takoma Park and its visitors can experience the joys of bicycling through learn to ride classes, commuting events, educational programs, bike rodeos, and or by simply getting out and going somewhere by bike. And whereas transportation is the leading source of total emissions in Takoma Park, and biking is an easy way for people to reduce their carbon footprint and advance the city's climate action plan. And whereas the city is committed and working to make riding a bike a comfortable, convenient, connected, and enjoyable experience for all residents and visitors, the city maintains signed on-street bike routes, bicycle parking, and public bike repair stations across the city. And whereas Commuter Connections, Washington Area Bicycle Association, schools, parks and recreation departments, police departments, public health institutions, and businesses will be joining the League of American Bicyclists in promoting bicycling during the month of May. And whereas these groups are also promoting greater public awareness of bicycle operation and safety education during Bike Month and year-round in an effort to reduce collisions, injuries, and fatalities, and improve the health and safety for everyone on the road. Now, therefore, I, Talisha Searcy, Mayor of the City of Takoma Park, Maryland, hereby proclaim May 2024 as Bike Month in the City of Takoma Park, and I urge all residents to join me in this special observance. All right. So with that, we're going to move into our public hearing on the FY 2025 budget. I'm just going to check with the clerk to see if we have a list of folks that have signed up already, and we're going in order.
We have two people signed up in the room. So we have Joy Markowitz, followed by Mary Jane Machui.
Perfect. So would the first person please come up to the podium to speak regarding the FY 2025 budget?
Okay, good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Joy Markowitz. I am a resident of Takoma Park and secretary of the Takoma Park Folk Festivals Board. The festival began in 1978 by Sam Abbott, who was our mayor from 1980 to 1986, and it's been ongoing for more than 45 years. It is a Maryland nonprofit organization with 501c3 status, incorporated in 1982. The festival draws thousands of people from Takoma Park and the region every September. And the goals include to provide a free family-friendly day of music, crafts, food, and from many cultural and ethnic traditions, to celebrate the wealth of musical and artistic talent in our region, to raise money for programs that benefit the community through our beneficiary volunteer program. 1 hour equals $10 for the organization, and to increase community awareness by providing a forum for local nonprofit organizations to distribute literature and answer questions. Our planning cycle is an important part of our festival. As a formal 501c3 organization with bylaws, we're required to have an approved budget by the end of December. Thus, we begin planning almost as soon as the festival ends. That's when we start looking at costs for the coming year, expected increases, projected income, etc. We use the budget for grant applications, as well as reporting and planning. By the end of February, we are actively working in committees, putting up applications, soliciting sponsors and grants. Already, 20 to 25% of our budget income is from grants with an application process, and funds are not confirmed until less than 6 months from the start of the festival. Also, 20% of our budget comes from sponsors and individual donors. Not being able to count on money from the city would mean that, depending on the application cycle, an additional 25% of our income would be up in the air with less than 6 months to go. In other words, more than 70% of our revenue, virtually all of it, that isn't tied to vendor fees and merchandise sales, could be unknown at the time we need to start making commitments, signing contracts, etc. Furthermore, the city's financial commitment to the festival each year and its in-kind support from various departments is a best selling point for us when soliciting funds from other sources. Losing a reasonably guaranteed source of revenue, even though we may never know for sure, we don't know for sure until the budget is finalized, significantly increases our risk. And this could impact our ability to attract sponsors and grants if we're not able to demonstrate a high likelihood that the festival has financial health to move forward. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you very much. Ms. Machui, you're up.
Thank you. Hi. Hello, Mayor Cersei, council members, everybody in the audience, and everyone listening or watching us on TV or whatever. I'm Mary Jane Machui, Ward 2. Cindy, I hope you're feeling better. I'm 404 Boyd Avenue. I'm begging, please, please. I'm also here as a low-income homeowner. I'm being priced out by the gentrification in Tacoma Park. I've noticed more wealthy people moving in, and they want more services and more taxes. It's going up and up and up. And I know there's also the cost of everything is going up, not just taxes, but it's really, really difficult to live. My son, he's a special needs son. He works his tail off, a low-paying job. He makes $26,000 a year. How in the hell is he supposed to live here? I'm 76. I'm not going to be around that longer. I think I'm starting to get a little dementia sometimes, and I'm concerned. Where is he going to be? Mr. Siemens works with Frontline Services, and I hope he says, hopefully, please, before I get too old, help my son get housing, found housing that he can afford in Tacoma Park. He was born here. Please, his father was an immigrant from Kenya. He's everything you say. You like immigrants, you like black people, he's all of the above. He's low income. He should be your poster man for Tacoma Park, really. If you can't help him, please, at least please help him and other people. And I notice in Tacoma Park, even when I walk in the ritzier section, I've seen men, most of unfortunately black men, begging for money, and I can tell usually when a person is bad off. I can tell when they got the shakes, or they're talking to themselves. These men need help too, and I wish the city would do more. And I would like my house to be converted. It's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath. It could be converted into a house for people, could help these men and my son and people like them, that they could live in Tacoma Park. Please, please. And he needs a job with a regular work schedule. The mayor said give a resume, hand in a resume. My son has an irregular work schedule, so he can't even take classes anywhere to improve himself. He doesn't know from day to day what hours and what day he will have to work. And that's the fate of most people with autism and severe mental crisis. They have no freedom. Thank you very much for listening. I appreciate it, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we have no more people that have signed up ahead of time in the room? Okay, perfect. So anyone else that has any comments on the FY 2025 budget, please come down.
Good evening. My name is Avon Duffin, and I'm a new planning volunteer for the Folk Festival. The first time I went to the festival, I felt a sense of unity between everyone there. Whether they were musicians, volunteers, vendors, or festival goers, the people I spoke to were unequivocally busy, but having a lot of fun. The atmosphere is a welcoming blend of traditional and modern elements. One of my favorite parts is the wide variety of local music. Folk is a broad definition, and there's pretty much always a song to enjoy. And even beyond music, the festival offers a wide range of arts, crafts, and creations. To me, it feels like a community anchor. I joined the TPFF team because I want to help keep this long-standing event alive and allow it to continue blossoming. Please help us preserve this Tacoma Park tradition. I'd like to second the request for funding. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other general public comments on the budget, FY 25 budget? We're still in the budget hearing. Okay. Going once, going twice. All right. Do we have any virtual comments on the budget? Perfect. All right. Next, we're going to move on to general public comments. Are there any general public comments this evening? Comments related to things that are not the budget?
I kind of covered everything, the budget and everything, but please, please, the street narrowing really is getting it's really difficult. You get older. I think when you all get really old, like me, you'll understand that it's harder, your depth perception tends to diminish as you get older. And I was born with poor visual depth perception, and it makes it worse. I have a hard time, I can't parallel park now. But, and how long are these spaces going to be taken back here? Do you all know? Because I parked way over there. I did get a space, okay, but it was way back there. But please, please stop narrowing the street so much. And the speed humps, go easy on those speed humps. They hurt our old bones when we go over them. And it's not fast, 5 miles an hour. They still hurt our old bones. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vichui. Do we have any other general public comments this evening? Okay. Do we have any virtual public comments this evening?
We do have one commenter, Rodius Gray Coker, and we just need to bring him into the meeting. I'm sorry for the delay.
Oh, no problem.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Are you able to hear me?
We're getting a little bit of feedback.
How about
Okay,
now?
it's on his side? Yes. Okay. So we're getting a little bit of an echo. So I don't know if it's,
How about now? Is it okay now?
let's see. It's a little better.
Okay.
Yes, that works.
That works?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you so much for hearing me. Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Rodius Gray Coker. My family and I have lived at 7411 Carroll Avenue. That would be Carroll and the corner of Carroll and Boyd. And our house backs onto the alley, which the Boyd Alley apron project is in question. We have a parking pad that ties into the alley, which my wife parks every day. We are fortunate in that our car has a high suspension, and so the bottom of the car does not scrape when riding over the apron. I must say, when we do have a trailer hitched, there's definitely an impact on the car. Over the years, I've heard the scraping sound when a low suspension car drives over the apron. For those families, I believe, the repair cost must be enormous. We and our neighbors, I believe, have been very patient while being passed over year after year as we've appealed to have this project included in the city's budget. A few years back, the city revamped the sidewalk in front of our house. With the manpower, equipment, and materials so close to the apron in question, that should have been the perfect time to make the changes to the apron. To our surprise, that did not happen. So as I'm here perplexed, I asked the council, what will it take to have this project undertaken? We all think our concerns should be number one, and sometimes are impatient when things do not get resolved. But in this case, I believe we've waited patiently long enough. Thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other general public comments? Great. Okay, we're going to move to council comments. Do we have any council comments this evening? Councilmember Gibson.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to say thanks for those who have spoken, Mary Jane and others. I'm pleased to note that our grant manager coordinator has submitted a grant proposal application for Sligo Mill Road, which included 7 residence letters around the Sligo Mill Road, a proposal to deal with the dumping and the invasives at that site. So I'm very excited about that, and I'm glad that we got lots of neighborhood support for that proposal. Also, item number 2, there is a invasives removal at Dorothy's Woods in Ward 3 this Saturday at 10:30 to noon. Friends of Dorothy's Woods will be holding that. A waiver is requested, but I think that you can go there and perhaps be able to participate. And third, there is also in Ward 3 a City Nature Challenge at Circle Woods, both on Friday, or April 26th from 1 to 3, and on the 27th from 8 to 9 in the morning. I would suggest looking on the city website under City Nature Challenge. So I'm pleased to know that there are activities that get us out and make our environment better and more restored. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Honzak.
Thank you. I just wanted to start with a huge thank you to the city staff and particularly to our new sustainability manager, Dorothy Estrada. The Earth Day event over the weekend was just a tremendous success, and on behalf of Ward 5 residents who were just gotten effusive feedback, people were thrilled to have an event in our part of the city and in that particular area, and particularly with Earth Day. So thank you for a really well done job. And we hope it can happen again. Secondly, I wanted to recognize a group that came to the event that I was really eager to see come back again, Roots to Rocks. They brought their bike trailer, and unfortunately they weren't able to do any Learn to Ride because the ground was quite wet and it was a little bit too busy, I guess they told me. And I'd love for us to explore as a city how we might leverage that partnership again. I think it's just so important that our young people learn to ride. In fact, one of my youth volunteers, who happens to be African American and happens to live in one of our affordable housing complexes with her 3 siblings, said, she was an 8th grader, could I learn to ride today? And this is exactly the youth in my neighborhood that I want to see get that opportunity. And it was a little frustrating. They were very excited to be there, but they also said that our space might not be big enough. So there are some things to crack open there, but I really think this is the kind of partnership that we need as we continue as a city to build out bike lanes and other things that are going to help residents from my part of the city to access, for example, downtown Tacoma. But as we do so, I think it's very, very important that we bring everybody along with us and explore all those ins and outs. Learn to ride events as much as we're able to. Making sure that buildings have, that managers are giving people the right to bring bikes into their building, et cetera. And I say all this in honor of our biking month. And then a couple more quick things. I want to thank also Devin McNally and the county inspectors. We were able to go out and see an elevator that's been out in 636 Houston for 4 years that I found out about recently. Let me just say I gave a very harsh talking to those that were present, not the staff, of course, but just, what is going on here. And I appreciated the partnership with the city to try to solve that and the county inspectors, and I'm eager to see that resolved as quickly as possible. And in the same vein, I'll be having a similar type of meeting, but not about elevators, at Essex House next week. And finally, I just wanted to share quickly, I'm very excited that we now have 69 youth sticker entries from the Earth Day event, as well as a workshop that some neighbors and I conducted at Rolling Terrace Elementary this week. So we're excited for the event that's upcoming where those stickers will be displayed. Thank you for your partnership.
Councilmember Fulcher.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody who's come tonight, and especially those that provided comment. And I also want to thank Dory for a really lovely Earth Day, and thank you to Ward 5 for hosting us in a particularly beautiful part of our city. Thank you.
Great. Well, I want to continue to shower Dory with the kudos because it was such a wonderful event. That was so well attended. There were so many people there, so many kids there, and it was just a really wonderful opportunity to not only engage with the residents, but to just bring everyone together for a really good cause. So I had the opportunity, a couple of residents stopped me, Ward 5 folks, and they said, okay, you see what we can do here? Let's do some more. What else can we do? So totally looking forward to thinking through more things that we can do to engage residents in Ward 5. Want to echo Councilmember Gibson in highlighting all of the wonderful things that we are doing in the city as it relates to Earth Day and Arbor Day and all of the days that's centered around the environment. So I encourage people to take the nature challenges, to plant a tree, and to do what we can to protect our environment as a community. Other things. So this weekend or last weekend, I was speaking a lot at a couple of fundraiser events, but this weekend I will be at another fundraising event at the Adventist Church. So we'll be joined by Councilmember Fulcher and Councilmember Siemens as we are attending an event in support of enabling a missions trip. So looking forward to that. With that, I'm actually, one thing I forgot, but I never used to forget. The Crossroads Farmers Market is open. Crossroads Farmers Market is open. I want to remind folks to head out on Wednesdays, enjoy some great fruits and vegetables and amazing pupusas. And it's such a fun time, and want to encourage people to check out Ann Street on Wednesdays for the Crossroads Farmers Market. And with that, just as an FYI, I was pinged by Councilmember Small, and he is still in transit. So he will try to join on Zoom as soon as he is stationary. So with that, I'll turn to Councilmember Gibson.
I just want to highlight, I went to the farmer's market today, and there were some people from the Council on Governments there visiting, and a council member from Prince George's County.
Yeah.
It's a happening place. The food looks good. I walked away with some lovely eggs and a great cup of Guatemalan coffee. So it's a great place to visit. Yes.
The coffee. It's good coffee. If you want some Guatemalan coffee, go to the Crossroads Farmers Market. All right, awesome. With that, I'll turn things over to our city manager for city manager comments.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Council. From the Housing and Community Development Department, the City of Tacoma Park received an award from the Metropolitan Washington Council of Government, their Transportation Land Use Connections Program. The Transportation Land Use Connections Program provides short-term consultant services to local jurisdictions for all planning projects that promote mixed-use, walkable communities and support a variety of transportation alternatives. The city's 2025 award will support transit planning and design efforts in the Tacoma-Langley Crossroads area. The City of Tacoma Park is preparing an application for the State of Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development's Community Health and Safety Works program. These awards improve the livability and economic potential of communities through targeted investments in the physical environment that impact health and safety. While supporting multiple partner applications, the city also plans to submit an independent application to address illegal dumping and vegetation overgrowth in the area of 6500 Sligo Mill Road. And some upcoming events. This Friday, April 26th at 7:30 p.m. in the Community Center Auditorium, the Tacoma Parks Arts Series presents Percussion Discussion Taps into Happiness performance. Percussion discussion includes 3 groups at different age and experience levels. Each ensemble has their own repertoire, and they will collaborate with an intergenerational performance. From our library, the Taylor Swift-themed program on Saturday, April 20th was a big hit. Imagine that. The Washington Post had included it in their weekend event recommendations, and about 55 people attended. On Saturday, April 27th, the library will open early at 11 a.m. for Dia de los Niños, or Children's Day, and a trilingual play in English, Spanish, and Nahuatl, an indigenous language of El Salvador. There will be music and puppets and lots of fun for families. From the Police Department. In 2017, Tacoma Park Police Department partnered with Secure the Call. Secure the Call is a charity with a single mission: to collect and convert as many old cell phones as possible into 911 emergency access phones. This is done on a national basis with collections and distributions going on in most states. Prior to donating, please make sure you remove any device restrictions. For Apple users, that means they would need to delete the iCloud account before you send it in. For Android users, this means the removal of the Google account and passcode. There are collection barrels in the community center, or you may use the link posted in tomorrow's City Manager's comments to request the free U.S. Post Office mailing label. Thank you for your generosity. From Public Works, and as alluded to by Councilmember Gibson, the Department of Public Works will be hosting 3 events this week as part of the Global City Nature Challenge. The City Nature Challenge is a citizen science event with the goal of documenting every living thing in outdoor sites. We will be documenting plants, insects, and birds at Circle Woods and Stuart Armstrong. To add to the inventory of these sites as they progress through invasive plant removal and reintroduction of native plants. More information is available on the city's Earth Month webpage. A link will be provided in tomorrow's posted City Manager comments. And our 3 locations are on Friday, April 26th from 1 to 3 p.m. at Circle Woods, on Saturday, April 27th from 8 to 9 a.m., birding at Circle Woods, and Saturday, April 27th from 9 to 10 a.m., Stuart Armstrong Garden. Finally, from the City Manager's office, a shout out from our HR department. Please join us in welcoming another new member of the Human Resources Department, Tyra Womack. She started on Monday as a Human Resources Generalist. Ms. Womack has worked in human resources for various local governments. Her knowledge and experience are a great addition to our Human Resources team. Welcome, Tyra. That concludes my report this evening. If you have any questions, please feel free.
Great, thank you so much. All right, so we're going to move into our work session this evening, and that is budget reconciliation. I'm going to, everyone should have the budget reconciliation items document, and we're also going to be projecting that on this screen. I believe all of the reconciliation items that have been received to date, I think, are here. But if there's anything that's missed, please let us know. What I'm hoping we will be able to do today is to have the staff provide any, I know that we just received quite a bit of information from staff regarding different questions that folks have raised about aspects of either reconciliation items or items that you may be thinking about, and want to make sure that if there are any outstanding questions regarding anything, and given that folks may not have had a chance to comb through all of the responses that we received today before this meeting, you could do that as well. Just as a reminder, we will have our final reconciliation meeting on Monday. I will be asking for hand votes for definitely on Friday. We'll be voting, but there may be some items that we may need to do a hand vote on today. And if we're not ready, we can hold them off to Monday. But I do just want to make sure that folks are aware that we can start making moves towards hand votes today. So with that, I'm going to kind of turn things over to Councilmember Gibson.
Yeah, I have several reconciliation items, which I didn't send in advance because I thought we were supposed to bring them. So did you want them at this point?
That would be, so you have
Some
reconciliation
new
items
reconciliation items.
that are not on the sheet.
That's correct.
Okay. So we'll give you back the floor to walk through your items. Council, I'm sorry, I just want to turn things over to the city manager to just make sure that there's nothing that I might have missed in terms of the outline of what we're doing tonight.
No, you did a very nice job of describing it, and we are in a mode where we're continuing to accept from the mayor and council, reconciliation ideas. So it might be good to go ahead and get those logged.
Yep.
What do you think, Andrew?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say it might be helpful just to go through what our updates have been since the
Mhm.
last session, and just walk through those quickly before we get started.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah.
Councilmember Zavala,
This
your
is
hand?
Councilmember, yeah, with a similar question. Is this version posted now that I can print out? Because I printed out the one that was up yesterday and it was different.
Yeah, Councilmember DeBala, one was updated about 2.5 hours ago, so this would be a new one. It is posted on the city website.
It is posted though, and I can, okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, and I can forward you a copy too. That's helpful.
Yeah, and then I can hit print. That would be fabulous, thank you.
Okay, all right, so, Councilmember Gibson, if you can hold on to your new items, we're gonna do the walkthrough in terms of updates of items that were submitted prior to the meeting, just to make sure that there are no questions or follow-up actions, or if anyone wants to do anything like pull their item off of the reconciliation list.
All right, thank you, Mayor. So the first item, you'll notice a change, an increase in our total general fund revenues. This is a difference between the estimated, and we just had an updated number on the actual in our library aid revenue. This is from the county of 14,000. So that nets to 13,326 increase in revenues from what is in the city manager's proposed budget. In addition, that was added based on the city manager's conversation with Councilmember Small, was a request for some public space management plan improvements, a couple of projects that were recommended by Councilmember Small. We've added 20,000 for that line for potential additional projects. That's doubling what's currently in the CIP of 20,000. And good news, at least for this year, and good news for the budget, there's been a delay. The legislature decided to push the date when it would require organizations to collect a payroll tax for the Maryland Paid Family Medical Leave Act. This was to go into effect in October of this year. It's now been pushed to FY26. As a result, that's a savings of $72,584. That was in the proposed budget. That does not need to be in now for next year. And one other slight change, had an update to the Boyd Alley apron construction project. Initially, we're estimating 25,000. We've increased that to a more conservative 30,000 number. Everything else is the same as from last time, although, one other item. We didn't have a number yet for the part-time recreation team staff between fringe and salary. We're looking at 54,774.
I do have one question. Under the ARPA fund expenditures category, there is there's a listing of development design performance measurement program. I thought that was something, I know that this is noted as a Councilmember Gibson item, but if I recall correctly, this was something that was supposed to be included in the budget and wasn't included by mistake.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that should be a city manager adjustment?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Happy to say that. Call that city manager.
Okay. And then what we will need to do is, I'm just trying to make sure that there isn't another item. Okay. All right. So with that, I just want to check in with folks who've submitted items on the reconciliation list that may want to either adjust or remove any items from their reconciliation list. Councilmember Siemens.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Honzak and I had put in an item to increase for $2,000 for a Eagle Scout project in the wooded area down behind, across the street from Public Works. And we strongly support that project. But in talking with the city manager and mayor, we would like to withdraw that request from this year's budget because I think that's something that could be funded from the current fiscal year Public Works budget.
Okay. Great, thank you very much. So we'll withdraw the Eagle Scout project from the FY25 budget, just as a reminder, because this is something that supports our staff and we'll be working with our Department of Public Works. We think that this is something that can be funded under our current budget in consultation and work with our Department of Public Works. Okay. Are there any other questions or adjustments regarding reconciliation items that have already been proposed?
Question.
Councilmember Gibson.
I just have a question about what Councilmember Small's potential additional projects. Have they been identified, or they're, I guess I need to know what that's for. I mean, or it's open, or what the specifics are.
Yeah, sure. So the items that Councilmember Small put forward, is it a specific one that you're questioning?
I don't know what they are. Maybe I'm not looking in the right place. It just says potential additional projects. Am I not-
Sure. So,
Is it someplace that I'm missing?
Yep, so there's a proposal to add another $20,000 to help towards funding a project under the Public Space Management Plan implementation. The idea, although, with the Public Space Management Plan, you can't earmark a specific project, but one of his thoughts was that there may be some other sites in Ward 6 that could meet the bill and ultimately could be something that would be fall under the Public Space Management Plan in terms of an implementation project. Currently, the budget includes the funding for, I believe, one Public Space Management Plan project. He's proposing an extra $20,000 to add another.
Okay, yeah, I had understood that. I certainly agree that there could potentially be more, and I'd raised that question. And if that's open to go through the scoring process, then that's fine. I hope that there isn't, we haven't made a decision, I presume, about where it is or what ward it is. Correct me if I'm wrong, that there's no decision made on that.
No.
Okay.
There's no decision on any funds that go that are part of the Public Space Management Plan. They all go through the evaluation process.
Okay, good. So it's not identified at this point. Okay, good.
City Manager?
Yes, thank you. Yes, technically they're being shown here. Councilmember Small, in conversation with me the other day, did speak about two ideas, and I don't mean to speak for him. I know he's traveling, and I think he had, I'm not certain whether he'll be joining us this evening virtually, but he did have some ideas in mind for two projects in Ward 6. But those, I would say, require some additional definition. So, and I don't mean to speak for him. I know that but there were two projects that he did have in mind. So we were thinking in terms of 10,000 for each, that's why 20. But I would ultimately defer to him to elaborate on his vision of what his request is.
Thank you. And so I presume that if it is open, that perhaps other council members may want to propose from our wards. So,
but one thing I do just want to make sure that everybody's aware, while I understand that everyone wants to put in earmarks in the budget for their respective projects, for their respective wards. There are certain aspects of review that needs to happen for any project. And if we're really trying to make sure that we're doing work in an equitable way, we can't circumvent the processes that we've created in order to get certain things in places that we want. So if we have a public space management plan implementation approach, which includes evaluating the merit of projects and prioritizing based on that evaluation approach, then we shouldn't be earmarking, right? So I think that that's something that is important for us all. So if we're putting something towards public space management, the assumption should be that it's going to be related to something that is ultimately goes through that public space management process.
Thank you for that clarification, and I just wanted to suggest that if we are entertaining other projects, which I had asked earlier, and not understood that we were entertaining other public space management projects, that we might want to consider offering some others to go through that process, just like the ones that Councilmember Small might want to go through.
Sure, but that isn't something that would necessarily transpire through the budget process. So if there are projects throughout the city that people think may be ripe for the public space management plan, working with staff to submit what those ideas are, get them ranked, get them in the queue, and then they work within the monies that they have allotted in the budget. Now, if what we're talking about is making sure that they are flush to have as many projects that we want to put forward, then we're talking about adding more money to the public space management plan implementation. I think right now we're at what, 20,000 per year. So if folks are feeling like, hey, that's not enough, and we want to put more money towards the coffer so that once those evaluations happen and there's a bunch of projects that we want to push forward, they have the money to do it, then that's the conversation we're having right now. But I just want to make sure that folks aren't thinking that you have a specific project in mind, trying to cram it through the public space management plan implementation, and then find that your project doesn't rank as high as someone else's, and therefore it doesn't meet the cut.
I guess I'm still unclear. The process. It's clear that any project that gets approved needs to go through the scorecard and the narrative justification, which. But for projects to get to be considered for that, that's what I'm not clear about. And it sounds as if there are two projects that are already being considered that have been discussed with our city manager. And I'm not clear whether those have a special track or whether they are, whether what the process is to offer projects that might go through the process, through the scorecard.
Sure. So I'm looking at Ira. Come on down, Ira. Now's your turn. Is the budget right? I think the big thing is just to remind everyone that when we were talking about budget priorities, there were a number of people who had proposed ideas for the public space management plan implementation. There wasn't just Ann Street, there were people who opposed other ideas. I believe that staff also are just, through the nature of the work that they do, aware of other potential ideas for a public space management plan. And so, Ira, if you could just talk through how, if there are members of council or members of the public who have public space place-making ideas that they want to try to figure out how to get included and reviewed under the public space management plan, what are the steps that folks would need to take to send those ideas to you?
Sure. Thanks so much, Mayor, members of council. Ira Cowler, Director, Housing Community Development. As a department and as a city, we have a working list of potential projects that could be eligible for this public space management plan funding. Those projects are projects that either we've been working on for a long time, have heard discussed for a while, right? Certainly we are open to more projects as we evaluate projects and make decisions on how to spend this money. And I certainly think it's reasonable that as we figure out how much money we have here, we'd be happy to share a memo with council outlining, the broad range of projects we're looking at, soliciting feedback on additional projects that people would be interested in. And, without over-promising that we're going to score, hundreds of projects or something like that, right? Within reason, look at as many projects as possible within this this funding opportunity.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Gibson, does that answer your question?
So it sounds as if, make sure I understand, that you have a working list and that you would entertain other projects to go through scoring process, again, assuming that there is money for them.
Certainly, and I think it's reasonable that we can solicit feedback from council as well as we go through that process.
And I guess I would ask for what the current list is.
Certainly. Yeah, I believe we shared kind of some information in the budget responses, but I'll confirm and share more if necessary.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. So are there any other comments or questions around items that are included already on the reconciliation? Any modifications? Okay. I do have a quick question. I know that Councilmember Small and I supported asking about the recreation teen staffing 20 hours with benefits. So I just want to, I'm sorry, you're all the way in the back. So I did just want to make sure that that I was understanding everything properly in terms of how this increase in staffing, adding the benefits could actually help us with recruiting. So I just want to make sure that I'm clear on what we're covering with this $54,000 if it moved forward.
The $54,000, I believe, includes the benefits as well as a portion, the actual person's hourly wage.
Okay.
So we'll include both of those. And with adding the benefits, I think we add some teeth, sort of, for the job. We get a more qualified person because of the benefits added to it. The person would have consistent hours, I believe 20 hours a week, which is up to 40 for 2 weeks. And we can get some consistency within our team program to help build up the participation, the quality of programs that we're having, and those sorts of things.
Great. And so that really would, because I know that last time we talked, the question was, do we need the body now or do we need the body once all of the library construction and all of that stuff is done? Are you still in the mindset that, from talking to the principals and the Haven and folks, I'm like, I think we need this body now.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. We need the person right now, as a matter of fact. But the benefits aren't added, and the folks that we're having the interview just aren't up to par or accepting. The ones that are, haven't accepted our offer to actually work with us. So we're having a difficult time, not only Tacoma Park, but around the state, in finding folks of that age to actually work part-time jobs. So.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Councilmember Fulcher.
I'm going to comment on that real quick, which is I've gone in to do some of the youth council meetings because Haven can't be in two places at once, and so she's in the teen lounge and I'm doing the youth council meeting, and they are disappointed to see me, right? Like they want Haven, they want Haven or someone else who's cooler than I am to be running their meetings, and so we need to get that position because Haven can't be in two places at once. I have one question or two questions. One, which is, has anybody suggested any decreases anywhere? No. Okay. And then for the ARPA fund expenditures, I see various city manager added items here. Is that all still acting within the ARPA money that we have those recommendations? Yeah, is that unallocated money that we have and not going above what we have in those suggestions?
So if you look at the bottom few rows here, there is a line of available total unallocated as of April 1st, and that still holds today, of 1.16. If you add up all of these, all of the additions right now, we're actually 35,000 over at the
Okay.
moment, so there will need
Thank
to
you.
be an adjustment made.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
City Manager, did you have a comment?
No, that describes it well. The quick answer was that that is the sum total of the unallocated as of April 1st, and we did add the Boyd Alley apron as being a good candidate for use of ARPA money. I think that was one that we added from the original list.
And one question I do have, which would be helpful, and I don't know, I think this pertains to one of Councilmember DeBala's items, is the sustainability intern and the increase of the sustainability intern time. And I don't know if Director Braithwaite, I think I saw her virtually earlier, can speak to this. Is having, like, how substantial is having that added FTE time? I see $20,000 is not a lot. So is this like an add-on to make this more competitive, or is this like, I'm just trying to see what we would get a half a person for 20,000?
Yeah, it is not clear to me which way we'll ultimately end up going once the fiscal year starts. That'll be a conversation with the sustainability manager and myself. Whether or not, given that this particular addition is focused on fleet electrification, we may want to look for a specific grad student that has some background in that, or some skill level that will blend nicely with that. Our interns get paid about $20 an hour. It's non-benefited, and an annual, if you had a full-time intern, it would be $40,000. So this is an additional 20, bringing that up to a potentially one full-time person, or we could have 2 part-time people.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And that is something that would be helpful in terms of, interns is always hard. Like, sometimes it's a learning opportunity for some, and then sometimes it's a trade-off. So is an intern position an increase that would be beneficial?
Absolutely. We have had excellent results with interns that we've had in our sustainability program. I think part of it is the subject matter that they're working on, as well as, we look for college educated, graduate level folks. And there's a lot of programs in the area that are generating very well qualified, talented candidates. So it would definitely be a value added.
Okay. All right, thank you. Sure. Councilmember Honzak.
Director Braithwaite, can I just ask a question? So if you, as the director of your department, were to need to evaluate what might bring more resources and meet the priorities of your department, and I know this is just your perspective, how would you think about a trade-off between, let's say, $20,000 less in the I'm looking at the street maintenance increase from the ARPA fund. So let's say it was $20,000 less there and a $20,000 increase in a sustainability intern. Can you speak about those trade-offs? And if you're not ready to, that's fine too. I'm putting that out there.
Yeah, it's really apples to shoes kind of comparison.
Sure.
Entirely different program matter, entirely different focus. I really wouldn't be able to compare and contrast those. I think they each stand alone on their relative merits, and that'll ultimately be a decision for council to figure out what they're comfortable funding.
Okay, well, maybe I can, and that was probably an unfair question. How about, can you talk about, and I know you talked about this a little bit last time, but if you'll remind us and those who are sitting out here and listening, can you talk a little bit more about how you see that additional $125,000 in street maintenance funds and why you see that as particularly important?
Sure. There's several main reasons, particularly related to street maintenance. First and foremost, over 20 years ago, we identified a need for $500,000 a year to maintain city streets in fair and better condition. And we did an evaluation of what the city has spent over the past 20 years, and we've fallen short of that goal on average. In and of itself, in any given year, that's not a big deal. You can catch up another time. One of the challenges when you see historic underfunding in something like that, what you come to realize is that a road that should be resurfaced and isn't able to because funding isn't available, the increased deterioration that the roadway surface experience means that it will be a more expensive repair when you finally do get to it, because once the surface goes, then you're affecting the base level of the road and having to mill and remove 4 to 6 inches and build that back up that base before you do your 2-inch surface course. So a delay to a road that's in poor or worse condition just guarantees that the expenditure is going to be greater in order to resurface that road when you do get to it. So by underfunding this program for so long now, we're basically costing ourselves more money on a consistent and future basis.
Thank you.
Councilmember DeBala, I saw your hand.
Yes, thank you. To that point, last week I had asked if we could get a sense based on the list of roads that have already been rated and the pace of construction, of repair, of repaving for the different roads, where the breakoff would be for the 500,000 and this 625. And so I understand that we haven't been able to get that yet, but Director Braithwaite, do you think we could get that in the next couple of days so that we can make a very informed decision on Monday about where the break point might be if we were going to consider not doing the full?
Yeah,
625?
what we've been preparing, and my apologies for not having
I can hear it in your voice.
Yeah, I've been sicker than I've ever been in my life.
Oh my goodness! Thank you for coming at all. Go home.
I'm not doing well, so I haven't been able to complete the work on that. What we're planning to prepare is a list of the current 21 rating by street section and a list of when the streets were paved, and we'll break that out in poor, fair, all the way, different categories. I don't know that that's going to show you what you're looking for. It sounds like you're looking for something that says, here's the worst rated streets in the city. If we pay $500,000, here's what we're going to get. If we pay $625, here's how far we can go. Again, those are tough estimates to make because what I just mentioned before, we can calculate based on a mill and overlay, but some of those roads may need more than that.
Understood. And yes, I was looking for some sense of where we would get with the additional 125,000.
Yeah, and I think
the points that we already have.
Yeah. All right, we can provide both of those. I think in the last report that we submitted, it had a list of a street condition by PCI, and so
that's the point.
You have that list there. What I will find out is how far different amount of money will go. Now, that being said,
Roughly.
as you know, from sitting through our paving discussions before, we don't always go in perfect order because there's conditions that warrant moving one street in front of the next, or there's a utility project we don't want to pave before the utility comes in. So it's never a perfect science, but I can give you a sense of how many more roadways will be covered.
Yeah. Yeah, understood on that too, that between 2021 and now, something could have changed on any of those streets that would move it up or down. Yeah. Thank you. Feel better.
And Councilmember DeBala, this is Rob. I just wanted to add to Daryl's point. One reason that we're recommending a little bit more this year. In last year, I believe we were as low as 250,000, which is about half of where we would normally want to be. And I know the budgets were tight. And so we are playing some catch-up ball. There's some streets that should have been done by now that haven't been. And our concern is if we don't try and do a little catch-up and even it out, we'll ultimately fall very far behind in staying on top of maintaining these roads for the public as we should. Thank you.
Understood. While I have the floor, if I may, put this question out. If there's still road questions, I can hold it.
Councilmember
So
DeBala, you can go forward.
My question is a general one, which is that now people haven't had a chance to add new things, and I understand there's some people who want to. But if I'm looking at 13,000 plus 24,000 plus another 35,000 in the three different categories, that's about how much we're over in terms of everything that's been suggested so far to add. That is, in the scheme of things, not a huge amount of money. And I was wondering if the city staff would care to offer a couple of options for where we might trim if it's not roads, to what are the things we might consider instead in order to be able to get some of these things into the budget. I would take my answer now, or, not after tonight, if that's more useful.
It might be best to, for staff, all of us to hear all of the commentary this evening so that we have, as opposed to as we're going along, I think we'll have a chance to digest, what's ultimately being requested, how far off we are from balance, and we could come back with some staff recommendations on potential reductions in some areas or other options to balance the budget.
And I
Thank you for that. And that makes sense to me, to wait till we have a complete list.
Andrew?
And Councilmember DeBala, I did just want to make one clarification. Between the revenues and the expenditures, it is a net, so it's only about 9,000 difference that we have right now. And if you look at the evolving fund balance, which is column L, we're just below the 17% as a result. So it's 9,000 within the general fund and 35,000 within the ARPA fund.
So the way that it's presented in the current table is that it's coming out of the unassigned fund balance, and our target, put another way, and our target was 17%, and we're still pretty darn close to that. Plus then within ARPA, juggling the 35,000 if we were to accept all of the recommendations that have been put forward so far. Okay, that makes me feel better. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that was actually where I was going to go. I think one of the things that I do think that we need to do as a council, because we gave staff very clear guidance on where our priorities are in terms of really making sure that we're making the necessary contributions to our reserve and making sure that we have the tax rate up front that we felt comfortable with. And I think now is the time where we have to control ourselves and really ask ourselves, and looking at the full list of reconciliation items, and ask ourselves, is this something that we need now? Is this a priority that we need to try to figure out how to pay for now? There may be things that we may want, but not necessarily things that we need in a fiscal year, meaning now. So I do want to encourage us to not just put the onus on our staff to find more money to fund our things, but to put the onus on ourselves that when we get to the point where we start voting, to make sure that we're voting based on our priorities and not just forcing folks to find money under seat cushions that we made sure that they vacuumed all of those coins up before they gave us the budget. Councilmember Gibson.
Can we move it to the additional reconciliation?
Sure.
Okay. I guess I'll premise my recommendations here for additional reconciliation items from the basically the climate and environmental crisis perspective. And I am thinking and have spoken with public works staff in terms of some possibilities of moving in that direction. I support the suggestion for an additional half-time intern that Councilmember DeBala had suggested, but I have two other specific recommendations that I've had that I've pulled together after discussion with staff. I'd like to add $20,000 from ARPA, unallocated, to vegetation maintenance. I'll just kind of read to you what I worked on with, discussed with, and had some agreement with Anna Miche John. In order to manage our natural resources sustainably, we need to protect, maintain, and improve the health of our parks and public green spaces. Valuable in themselves, they also provide for vital resident recreation and well-being. However, improving and expanding habitat and invasive removal and the planting of native plants is severely limited by both staffing and funding constraints. The use of the multi-year ARPA funds can help advance this essential goal. So the project recommended is a multi-year project that would be obligated in FY25, but could be implemented later to hire contractors for invasive plant removal and native plant restoration on city-owned properties, with consideration of the most impactful sites according to funding availability and site considerations. And the selections would be identified by the Vegetation Maintenance Division. So I think that like everything else, they deteriorate, but we also have a crisis in terms of our climate and environment and a deterioration of that. So I'm recommending that we add $20,000 from our ARPA to the vegetation management or maintenance. The second one has to do with doing a similar thing for a similar reason with the stormwater work. So I'm asking for, or suggesting that we consider adding $50,000 from the ARPA unallocated to the stormwater fund. The rationale, and Jesse, if it's helping, I'll give you this. The climate emergency faced by the city is felt most acutely in stormwater flooding, erosion, and property damages that research and recent experience show we will only increase over time. There's urgency and opportunity to advance the city's stormwater mitigation strategies, leveraging research that begun under the two-year, $134,000 city-funded LIDC Stormwater Resilience Project. This important investment identified remediation opportunities for 20 flood-prone sites, but only one multi-site area included in-depth modeling, SWIM modeling. However, the FY25 budget makes no new investment in stormwater resilience research or planning. The multi-year ARPA funding is available and appropriate to address this need within existing staff capacity. So a multi-year contract obligated in FY25 to hire contractors for an expanded pre-implementation stormwater mitigation project. Pre-implementation, not doing it, finishing it, but by doing remedial investigation, feasibility study, conceptual design, and engineering. So that I would recommend as a second proposal, specifically using the the multi-year aspect that the ARPA unallocated funding allows for. And so I will only add one other item, which is similar in the sense that it has in some way to do with our climate emergency. And I would like to suggest that we reduce 2 police patrol vehicles from our CIP ERR. The $73,000 times 2 is $147,000. I believe we can lower the dependence on gas vehicles and hybrids are gas vehicles, and use this time to consider, as I know that the department is doing, to study the possibilities of EVs, and so that hopefully after a delay we will be able to look at transitioning in EVs over time. Those are my 3 recommendations.
Thank you, Councilmember Gibson. I have a question for the Deputy City Manager Boduk about ARPA money and multi-year contracts, right? So the money has to be obligated by 2025.
By the end of this calendar year.
End of this calendar year. So by December of 24, and it needs to be completely spent by
The end of 26.
the end of 26, right?
Calendar year 26.
Calendar year 26. All right. So I'm just trying to, again, play devil's advocate for a moment. We're putting this in, for the purposes of folks at home, we're putting this in the 25 budget, which wouldn't start until July. Then you would have to get these contracts out the door, which means then you have it obligated by the end of the year. But that still leaves you 25...
Two full years.
2 full years to implement. Okay. So are we saying that these contracts that are being proposed would be two-year contracts?
They would be longer than the fiscal year. They could, I just put multi-year, and in talking with staff, the capacity of the current staff wouldn't allow them to be done in FY25 by themselves. So that's why the multiple years. So I don't know whether it would go, I don't know that we can specify exactly how long. It would be within the time frame allowed by ARPA, but it would likely be beyond FY25.
So, and I hate to ask the Public Works Director because I know she's not feeling well, but $20,000 over multi-year, I mean, how realistic is that in terms of getting someone to bid on that? I mean, it's what, $10,000 a year? How many hours is that? It would be helpful for me to have some information on what the actual, realistically, what you can expect to see happen with a $20,000 or $50,000 contract that you're spreading out over a couple of years that's supposed to be for vegetation, and I'm not immediately seeing the viability. I mean, the stormwater, I don't know, but I'm not immediately seeing the viability of this. And so it would be helpful to get a better understanding of what exactly are we talking about in terms of multi-year contracts at these levels, and whether or not it would actually be something that's viable.
Mayor, I can speak to the vegetation maintenance contract. That is a figure that staff has already opined on.
Okay.
And staff feel pretty comfortable about that number. And we can do some more due diligence and get back to you about the feasibility of $20,000 in LIDC.
Okay. Okay, great, thank you. Councilmember Gibson, did you have any?
No, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one thing too that I do want to, and then Councilmember Hans, I see your hand. So One of the things that I do want to stress to colleagues as it pertains to the ARPA money, right? We are way over in terms of, and I'm not exactly sure if this is updating, because we were at 34 and we just added, I thought the stormwater multi-year, was that 50 or 20? 50. Yeah.
Sorry.
So, yeah, no, we're way over.
Okay.
We're like 100K over in ARPA. So I do, especially when we get ready to start doing hand votes, we can't vote this in. So there's going to have to be things that will either have to be moved to the general fund, which would have to either impact our reserves or our tax rate, or there are things that we're going to have to vote down, right? So I do think that folks will need to make sure that they're doing some due diligence so that when we get ready to take these votes on Monday, folks will be prepared to balance this out, because there or proposed decreases to line items. Councilmember Honzak.
This is a time where we can discuss some of the proposals. So, Councilmember Gibson, I'm sorry I haven't had time to engage with you offline about the vegetation maintenance concept, but I'll just do it here in the public. We had been talking a little bit, I'll share with the public too. Several of us one-on-one had been talking about the Eagle Scout project, and we began talking about some ideas that have been growing over more than just the recent times about youth micro grants. It came up at our last meeting. And one of the things that I think, Councilmember Gibson, you've spoken about a lot, is the value of our community volunteers, youth, be they youth or adults, that we as a city could possibly do more to optimize some of that value and figure out how to leverage it for the benefit of the city, the sort of in-kind benefit of people's time. A lot of people in the community grow plants, native plants. And I know that also often requires volunteer management, and that comes with its own cost to the city. But it does occur to me that there might be some things to unpack as a city that could be really useful if we were a little bit more deliberate about, and I'm thinking of this vegetation maintenance line item, about how we might do something that doesn't cost that kind of money, in the form of, let's say a youth micro grant for $2,000. Just here's for example, youth micro grant, an Eagle Scout or a Gold Scout in the Girl Scouts says, comes to the Director of Public Works or someone else in the city staff and says, I would like to do a project and I've been thinking about gardening and native plants. Where in the city might that be viable? And we propose some different public spaces, and whether it's gone through the public space management plan rubric or not, I could imagine they are required, in fact, to go out and get a lot of different community buy-in and labor from people. So I mean, that's the kind of thing that I could see coming together around vegetation, within maybe new vegetation, native plants that get planted. I'm thinking of Wabash Park, just for example. We could clean it out with volunteer support. We could also imagine $2,000 could go a very long way just as a motivator, actually, from the city, let's say in the form of a micro grant. And it doesn't even have to be monetary necessarily, but that the city supports the concepts that might promote some of our maybe it wouldn't be maintenance, but plantings of things in certain parts of the city. So I just want to put that idea generally out there. It's already circulated a little bit as we were talking about some micro grants with youth. But I think if we did it more thoughtfully with a plan in place for the coming year, and we could all put our heads around it, we might be able to come up with something that would really, unlock the power of that kind of volunteerism without putting the dollars behind it.
Councilmember Gibson.
I'll just say that I did discuss with staff including an option within this to leverage volunteers as well, and I was advised that didn't need to come in. In other words, that it could very well be included, but it didn't need to come in to my proposal per se. So I think it's not an either or. We could, as it often is done, staff like the Circle Woods, we had staff there and we had plenty of volunteers both. And so I certainly support your idea, and I think but it's not either or in some cases.
and if I could just respond, I think, you know, making choices between stormwater or vegetation, knowing that we could leverage some of that in kind, or if I have to choose, which, you know, it's like what Director Braithwaite said, how could she compare a sustainability intern with the need to repair roads? Personally, right now, I'm just sharing my viewpoint. I think that we are at a moment in time, yes, we're in a climate crisis, but knowing that there are some other ways we can leverage that kind of thing, whereas we're talking about recreation teen staffing in a time where our juveniles are suffering severely, and our entire, you know, youth are our asset for the future, you know, we can leverage those same teens who we're staffing up into our community to help them grow as persons in our community, to invest in our community in the way, you know, in their activism. And I guess I would personally, right now, I feel like that needs to be our number one priority. But that's my opinion, just sharing.
Thank you, Councilmember Honzak. So I do have a couple of quick points. We had members of the community come out to talk about support for the Folk Festival. Can staff talk a little bit about the thoughts behind requests, like how this budget is dealing with requests for like event support?
Sure, thanks so much. So in the budget that we've proposed, we've actually increased the community festival allotment line. So I believe it was 15,000, or I believe there were two separate allocations in years past. There was a $15,000 allocation for community festivals and a $20,000 allocation for the July 4th celebration specifically. Sorry, excuse me. Pardon me. What we're proposing in the budget in front of you is an increase to that total number just under the community festivals line. So I'm sorry, I don't have my budget book in front of me. I can't recall. 60,000 is the new total number. So we're actually proposing to increase the amount of funding we're providing to events. And the plan would be that we would be rolling out at some point in the year kind of a broader, more open and equitable process for folks to apply for that type of support. I'll say, speaking just for me, not for the rest of staff, we haven't developed something yet. I think there's certainly an acknowledgement that there's folks, it's going to take us some time to roll out a new process because we need to see what the number is and see how this all plays out. There's also certainly an acknowledgement that there are folks who have, planned work this year expecting certain support, and I think we will certainly, again, without promising anything here and just speaking for myself, certainly would consider that as we kind of devise a strategy here for allocating those funds in 25.
Great. I think, especially because many of these events happen in the first quarter of, or close to the first quarter of the fiscal year, I would actually suggest that we plan a phase to this approach. I actually like the grant approach because we are constantly being asked to support different events. I just think that we maybe need to do a phase in. So as we are developing the grant process, the application process and the like, I think the challenge though will be for us to make sure there's gonna be money in the budget, in the 26 budget, so that if you're getting these grants and they're awarded, you know who you want to award, and the minute the budget hits, we have that money. So it's a kind of, oddly enough, a catch-22 where we need people to apply, but the timing of our budget sometimes doesn't allow for that. But I would want us to try to think creatively, to your point, about how to do that so we're able to fund the big ticket events that are likely going to happen this summer, early fall, while simultaneously trying to get through the process in terms of developing the grant and transitioning over in that way. Councilmember Fulcher.
Has there been an estimate on the spending for the Juneteenth celebration at all yet? No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not to my knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, that's like on the other side of this grant cycle would be Juneteenth, and making sure that we're also going to have enough money to carry over to that fourth quarter so that we can support that event.
Yeah, because the 4th of July parade is also, so you have the 4th of July, you have Juneteenth, although Juneteenth should be before this budget. So that would be out of 24, but you would have the 4th of July, Juneteenth would likely come around next year, the folk festival. So there's a lot of some of those bigger events that happen in that first piece that usually we would fund. Okay. Is there any way that we could just make sure that we have a firm handle on the amount of monies for, you know what, I can look it up because I'm pretty sure I have it. Like how much money in the past we've given towards things like the 4th of July parade in this budget, folk festival, some of these other events. I think it's already in here. Just so that we can have a firm handle on how much money we're talking about for some of these events.
Sure, and again, last year, $15K for Folk Festival, $20K for 4th of July.
For 4th of July?
And I believe that's been pretty standard over the past few years, though I'll look at my Folk Festival folks to maybe not an agreement. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. All right. And so I think I'm done with you. Next question.
Can I ask?
Did you? I'm sorry, Ira.
I'm sorry. 15, and you said it was increased to 60. Is that correct?
Correct. So again, in the FY24 budget, you'll see two separate lines, actually. One which is, again, $15,000 for community festivals.
Yeah.
And another which is 20 for just the 4th of July festival.
Okay,
It's a
so
separate line item entirely.
So 35 combined to 60.
Increased to 60, correct.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. And so, Chief, come on down. Yeah. All right. So, can we talk about vehicles? I know it brings joy. So I know that I feel like we go through this every budget season about the ERR and about the patrol vehicles. Can you just talk a little bit about, the impacts of the delay of the 2 police vehicles and kind of what that means in terms of how our police department functions?
Sure thing. Absolutely. So we are still awaiting vehicles from 2 fiscal years ago. We have numerous vehicles that are still in our fleet that were scheduled to be deadline. These are vehicles that are costing more for maintenance. These are vehicles that are not aesthetically pretty. These are vehicles that are not comfortable for officers. We have a schedule for vehicle replacement that we have not gotten the vehicles just because of the delay. It's basically because of COVID. We're finally getting back to where we're getting on track. And if I can just touch on the vehicles this year, all 9 of the vehicles that we are expected to get, that we put in through the Vehicle Replacement Committee that have been reviewed by the Vehicle Replacement Committee are marked patrol vehicles. 7 of them were scheduled originally. 2 of them were vehicles that were put off from last year. All of this money is just not attached to the general fund. It's all in the ERR, just so it doesn't affect the tax rate. We had a very, very long conversation previously, both internally and externally, with various council members about this. To think that if we postpone 2 of these vehicles this year until next year, that we are going to be ready to have patrol vehicles as electric vehicles is not realistic. It's just not. We are years away from being able to have a fully functional fleet that is electric. And that's not just us. That's not just the Tacoma Park Police Department. That's various different agencies that are trying to make this change. We desperately need these vehicles. We now have very, very few spare vehicles. So if more than one officer's vehicle goes down because of an accident or some other reason, we don't have vehicles that they can even occupy. So we were finally getting to the point where we were comfortable that our fleet was going to get back to where it should be. And like I say, as I said before, we desperately need the vehicles that are in that queue.
Great. Thank you very much. Councilmember Fulcher.
Is the current fleet all hybrid?
No. So what we did when the hybrid patrol vehicles became available, any new patrol vehicle, we transitioned to the hybrid. So we still have some gas vehicles. All of the vehicles that we would be replacing would be gas vehicles being replaced with hybrid vehicles. As we're looking at the electric fleet, so we have basically 3 variations of vehicles. We have our administrative vehicles. So we have 2 vehicles that are occupied or used by our park enforcement.
Hybrid and plug-in hybrid, what's the difference?
Councilmember Devala, can we mute Councilmember Devala?
I can answer that question for you later if you want, but that's usually me at home. But back to our West. So we have two of our electric vehicles are parking enforcement. They are not take-home vehicles. So we transition those to electric vehicles. That's much easier to do. We also have electric vehicles on our fleet that are occupied by officers. All of our sworn officers have take-home vehicles. So what we're trying to do for our non-patrol fleet, the ones that are not marked vehicles, are transition those first to electric vehicles. None of the vehicles that we're replacing this year are those type of vehicles. Eventually, the hope is that we're able to transition all of our vehicles over to either hybrids or electrics. And ideally, realistically, what's going to happen over the next few years is any of the unmarked non-patrol vehicles will transition to electrics. So we'll have those electric ones in our fleet. And then as we're comfortable and as the infrastructure is in place, and this isn't just for police vehicles, this is just for electric vehicles in general in the city, we'll transition over to those. It's a long-term plan, but one that we're really comprehensive about how we're going to approach it. But that's kind of where we are right now.
And sorry to get so detailed here. So I know that right now, or I think that right now, my understanding, Montgomery County is trying out some of the electric vehicles for their patrol officers. Is that correct?
They have 6 vehicles. So Montgomery County, compared to us, they have hundreds of vehicles, if not over 1,000 vehicles in their police fleet. They tried out the Mach-E just as an administrative vehicle. That's another electric vehicle, not the Chevy platform that's pursuit rated. So what they're doing now is they're purchasing 6 vehicles out of their hundreds of vehicles to try to test and evaluate to see if that's feasible. 4 of them they're going to try to do as patrol vehicles, and 2 of them they're going to try to do as administrative vehicles. Right now, we spoke to Assistant Chief Frank from Montgomery County, and they were very candid. Meaning Montgomery County Police, are not ready to transition to electric vehicles. But having a fleet of 800 vehicles as opposed to a fleet of 60, it's much easier to do that in that volume. So our goal is to, when the Chevy Blazer which is pursuit rated and electric, is available. It's my understanding that it's been approved for pursuit rating. We may buy one to see how we can do that. But we do have an electric vehicle right now that was originally assigned to one of our plainclothes detectives, and it just didn't work because it didn't hold a charge throughout the entire shift.
Right, I was wondering, because how long, my understanding, your shifts are 12-hour shifts.
Yes, ma'am.
And I feel like electric cars don't last that long.
We found that for various reasons, and it's not just, a lot of people equate a police vehicle to their personal vehicle. Your personal vehicle, you drive to work and you get out of it. You may drive to the grocery store. These vehicles are operated 12 hours a day. So if I give you an example, an officer comes on a shift at 7 a.m., their first call for service is a vehicle accident. They're on that accident for an hour and a half. Their lights are on during that entire time. That's draining the battery. So we would need to have those officers come in for periodic times during their shifts, an hour here, an hour there, to do that. And it's just not practical for response and for calls for service. The one vehicle that we had for our special assignment team, we had to move to one of our command staff members to test and evaluate it. And even she has issues keeping it fully charged, and she's an administrative person. So there's a lot of different evaluations. There's a lot more equipment that goes into even the unmarked patrol vehicles. So the unmarked patrol vehicles aren't marked and they don't have light bars on top, but they still have radios and they still have lights and a siren. So those are added things that they have. So we are very, very aware and dedicated to trying to get our fleet to a fully electric fleet. But it's not an overnight thing. And as I started with, to think that if we delay 2 cars at next year or even the following year or following that, we're going to be able to transition to electric vehicle for patrol vehicles, it's not realistic at this point.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief. And I know our finance subcommittee, one of the things, and I think this is something that we're going to have to take on as a council, the major question was whether or not we needed to start adding more to the equipment replacement reserve in the case that the electric vehicles, when they become available, because, and I think that there is plans already to try to add, that's already part of the formula, right? But the fact that when these vehicles come on board, making sure that there's enough monies in the coffer to make sure that we're able to pay for them when they're ready.
It's a really good point. And when we switched over to the hybrids that were more costly, yes, we factored in the additional cost of the hybrids over the years in the ERR. So as we move forward and we figure out where we're going to phase in these vehicles, we absolutely are going to consider that. There will be additional considerations outside of what a gas vehicle would be, obviously charging stations and so on and so forth. But that's part of what we do through the Vehicle Replacement Committee, is factoring in the change in cost and so on and so forth. And I'm glad you brought up the change in cost. Every year you push a vehicle out, you're adding 10 to possibly 25% cost to that vehicle, because it's not just the vehicle, but it's also the radio, it's also the brake, it's also all of the lights and siren and all of the mobile data terminal that goes into it. So we just need to factor that in as well, that prolonging vehicles are going to cost more just because the vehicles are going to cost more.
Great, thank you. Okay, I'm just going to do a quick check with Councilmember Dabala to make sure there's no other questions on this topic. Okay, all right. So in light of, thank you very much, Chief. In light of the fact that we
May I? I'm sorry, it took me a minute to get mobilized here.
No worries.
I just wanted to say that all of these questions is part of why I think it's important that we give staff the resources they need to be able to do the plan with the different options. Do we need chargers in 2 years? Do we need chargers in 4 years? What do we need to budget for as a council? That's why I proposed the part-time intern. Just want to say that. Thank you.
Great. And so I know that we had talked about doing a couple of hand votes this evening, but I believe that given that we have a couple of council members that are remote and there's still some outstanding questions that I believe staff have, council members have asked in order to put us in a position to vote, I'm going to hold our voting until our meeting on Monday. That said, are there any other items for the reconciliation list? Like, speak now or forever hold your peace. All right? Because the biggest thing is not just making sure that you have what you need, but making sure that staff have time to prepare and your colleagues have the ability to ask the questions that they need to ask in order to be prepared to vote on Monday. Councilmember Gibson?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that the question, it's been somewhat addressed in that, and it's hanging and we're waiting for information, and that is having to do with the street maintenance amount, because I could propose a reduction, but I don't know how much to reduce or how much we can reduce, but I want to say that's on the agenda. It also, the question of the ERR, if there is any kind of reduction in terms of the number of police vehicles, whether it's 1 or 2, we could reduce the ERR. So I'll just put that out, because we wouldn't need the need would be reduced.
Well, so I do want to just make sure that everybody understands what the equipment replacement reserve is. It is like a savings account for when we eventually need to replace our vehicles or equipment. What you don't want to do is, if you delay, then yes, we're not spending money from the reserve, but that doesn't impact your tax rate. That doesn't impact anything. It's just, you're just not spending money that you've saved. If you take that money instead and say, okay, well, I'm going to take these 2 cars, the money that you'd save for these 2 cars, and I'm going to use them for sidewalks. I'm going to use that money for sidewalks. Then that means you no longer have money saved for the cars that you're going to eventually need. So it's important for folks to understand that the equipment replacement reserve, not spending money this year, doesn't necessarily impact anything other than you're not pulling from your savings to buy the car.
understood, and also there's always a trade-off in terms of what the urgency is or the need is that you're going to use that money for, that you could use that. I just want to hold it up as a possibility.
Councilmember Hazard?
I just want to reiterate that I think the fact that we don't have that many proposed adjustments this year as a council is a testament to what an excellent job the staff did in listening to each and every council member and the residents about what we really wanted to see this year. So I just want to thank you, because I really, I felt so different coming into last year's budget. And I was a new council member, but I was reading through all my notes last night and I thought, look, all the things we talked about last year, I feel like, I really feel heard. And so I just thank you. Thank you so very much for putting together a budget that makes a lot of sense.
Thank you, Councilmember Honzak. Councilmember Fulcher?
Thank you. I agree fully. Like I would just about pass this budget tonight. I do want to say I'm not proposing any adjustments at this time. My hope is that in the future, my colleagues would consider if we find some loose change in the other quarters as we're doing budget adjustments, we would consider adding money to sidewalks. I have a bunch of residents that occupy the area, that live in the area between Tacoma Park Elementary School, Tacoma Park Middle School, and also going down to where the dog park is and where Piney Branch Park is, that would like to know that their kids are able to travel these areas safely. And we don't have the money in this budget, in the fiscal year 2025 budget. They are patient people, and I've told them that I think we can get to them in 2026. But if anything becomes available before then, I would appreciate consideration for that in upcoming budget amendments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Fulcher. Councilmember Stevens?
Oh, and that was pretty clever. Okay. You'd think I didn't have any experience with this. But since I have been here for a few years, I did want to echo some of the statements that have been made tonight with how well the budget process has gone this year. And I really appreciate that from our new city manager and his staff that has done a lot of work. I think also that the council can take a degree of credit for that by setting some clear goals before the city manager had to put the budget together. And I think at this point, the goal that we set was pretty well been met by the proposed budget, and I'm reticent to make many, if any, changes to that at this point in time. I know it's always exciting as Christmas approaches, but we don't always have the money to get everything we want. So just leave it at that for tonight, and we'll see where we go next week.
Excellent. Thank you, Councilmember Stevens. So I just want to echo my colleagues in appreciation for the city staff. I know we've asked a lot of questions, and I know that you all have provided a lot of information. But I truly believe, and I've said that this has been one of the easiest budgets. I've been on council now for 5 years, and I'm nowhere near Councilmember Stevens. But this, I do sound old. I sound like I've been around the block for a long time. But I will say that this process has been much easier and due in large part to the professionalism and the expertise of our staff and the ability to not only come in and put together a budget that is based and rooted in the priorities of the council, but to do it in the midst of transition. So it's just a true testament to our team and how good you are at doing what you do. So With that, I don't see any other lights, but I do want to encourage members of council, talk to one another, ask questions about the items that are on the reconciliation list, and be prepared to vote on Monday, right, on the reconciliation items. And with that, I think we're done for tonight. Everyone have a good night.